Hey there everyone and welcome to The Game Code. I'm your host Stephanie Pelley and we're Atlantic Canada's only video game show, bringing you the latest happenings in the video game industry and featuring the local gaming scene as well. We've got a great episode lined up for you. We're back with John Paynter to relive one of our favorite things about the retro consoles, the co-op game. John will be talking about some of his personal favorites and share his impressions on where multiplayer games are headed. Ian and Mike join us to bring you the first segment in The Game Code's Mobanomics 101. They'll be giving you a high-level overview of the genre and some history of some of the top-tier games to start us off. We absolutely love the fans of the show and their willingness to share the sometimes embarrassing but always charming stories of their gaming lives. We're bringing you more of the stories in Gamer Confessions. So you've heard about this game called BioShock Infinite. Irrational Games' latest offering is a behemoth of a game. Mike sits down to talk about his impressions of this hugely popular franchise. One of my favorite things when I was growing up was to just sit on the couch with my best friend and play the latest co-op game on the NES until our eyes were red. Couch co-op is a bit of a dying trend in games today in favor of online multiplayer, but we wanted to look back on those forgotten games to see what made them so damn awesome. And we couldn't think of a better person than our expert on all things retro, John Paynter.
All right, so we're back here at John's place, and one of the things that maybe you don't know, John and I have actually been friends for like 24 years, and over those 24 years, we played a few video games, I'd say.
Just a few.
Just a few. Now, I had the idea, you know what, let's come and talk about co-op games. So, John, one of your favorite games, Battletoads?
Absolutely. Battletoads is definitely one of my favorite games of all time. What's really funny about it is really popular, but I've never actually met anyone that's gotten very far in the game. The first I've ever been able to get is level 3.
I always thought the game had 3 levels, so that was it.
I recently found out there's 12 levels, and I still can't I try to do it with an assistance tool and emulator, and I still can't get past about level 4, so it's a pretty difficult game for sure.
But one of the tough things about Battletoads was it was impossible to play by yourself, but it was just not happening if you were playing co-op.
Oh yeah, co-op, the cool thing about it, and funny thing about it actually, is if you get into the game to play 2 players, the second player actually had to hit start. There was no
menu screen
at all. There's nothing. You just had to hit select, and that's how you got through. And it was really funny because it wasn't really co-op. You could hit your other player, and knock him and do damage to him and hit him off the edge and steal his weapons. And
which is basically what our games turned into.
Yeah, and it turned into a match for the guy who got the bat in the first level, and they smashed the other ones so the guy couldn't get it.
But if I remember correctly, you could actually steal someone's life. Like if you died before them and they had a life, you could take it, could you not?
There is a way to do it. I've never been able to figure out quite how to do it. But normally what happens if one player loses all their lives, you have to start the level back to the beginning if the other person doesn't type in the correct combination, I believe, to get it.
It's just a mess, and it just never worked out. I don't even think we made it to the actual cart level, because going down the tunnel in the second level was just impossible with 2 people.
Yeah, I could never been able to get past the second level with in co-op mode for sure.
Now, one of the games that I remember playing a lot was Rescue Rangers. And this one, same sort of thing. You could do the co-op thing where you could like damage people, but it wasn't as bad.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't as bad. It was funny because you could pick them up, and it was more of an annoyance than anything because one player could pick up the other one and run with them the whole level, and the other guy couldn't do anything. Also, you could throw boxes at them and stun them, so they got hit by enemies when they came at them.
Yeah, and you could do the thing where you could like hide in boxes, and you'd always try and start off the game in like the sense of I'm gonna cooperate, and we're gonna try and you'd get to like the end of the first level, and you're like, this sucks, I'm gonna throw you into the metal dogs. Like that's basically how I remember our game. The other thing that was really annoying is, if you remember Zipper, you could get the little bug in Rescue Rangers, and he was like sort of like a star when you get in Mario, and he would go around and get all the enemies, but if you just stood there, nothing would happen.
Yeah, guys would still run into you, so it only worked if you were running full speed.
Well, that's basically it. I remember like I'd get Zipper, like, all right, let's go, and you'd just stand there.
Yep. The best way to screw you over a little bit for getting it when I couldn't get it.
Now, I didn't play a whole lot of Contra co-op, but I know it's a game that you played a lot for co-op. What about it made it a great co-op game?
Well, the game itself was a really good run and gun game, and as I mentioned in another episode that I do like run and gun games, and it was really fun because you could have one guy take basically the top, and the other guy would take the bottom, and you could get through the level, and you wouldn't have the guys shoot you from either direction. The only problem is that once again they have the screen scroll problem where you could actually mess over your partner if you want to jump higher than he is, and it will when the screen reaches him, it actually kills him. So.
Now, with Contra, did you ever beat it without using the code?
I've come really close. I've actually made it to the final boss without using Contra code, but unfortunately, I've never been able to do it without the actual code.
You're a better man than I, because I couldn't get anywhere close to it. I am no good at this game. Did you have a favorite weapon?
Definitely the spread gun.
spread is pretty much the go-to.
Yeah, if you have that, the game is easy.
Now, I didn't play a whole lot of more than 2-player games, but I see you do have some of the stuff here. Those are actually kind of advanced. Like you could have 4 controllers to set up. Do you remember any of the games that actually use 4 people at the same time? Because I can't think of any.
Yeah, there's actually a game called Round Ball, which is a 4-player basketball game, as well as I believe V-Spike Volleyball played 4 players as well. And I think that there was a soccer game as well that came out for it. It was kind of neat too because there was the 4Score, which was a wired 4-player adapter, and there was also the NES Satellite, which would plug into the front of the console, and then it would send an infrared beam over to basically a satellite where you could plug in 4 controllers there.
Do you remember, like, how well did that work though? Because I know Nintendo, we've talked about it before, their wireless technology second to none.
Oh yeah, just absolutely bad. This actually works pretty well as long as it's in direct field of vision. If you have it sitting on an angle like that or backwards, it just won't pick it up because it is infrared and it has to be completely in the direct line.
Now, I have such fond memories of co-op games specifically when I think about older games. And it seems now it's very different. You've got the Xbox Lives, you're playing PC gaming. What's different about gaming now? Like, do you think that we just ignored the sort of sitting on a couch and playing the same game, or, is it for the best?
You see, the main problem I find now is a lot of the games that are multiplayer are all about killing each other, and it stemmed obviously from first-person shooters.
Right.
And GoldenEye was a big additive to that, and started out where everyone would start shooting each other, and you'd sit at home and do it. But now with the internet, people at their different houses playing against each other.
So do you think games have lost connection with that multiplayer? Like, do you think it's something that needs to come back to modern gaming?
Yeah, a little bit. I think more co-op is needed. I like games where I get to play with a second person. They do it sometimes in Resident Evil games, as one example for sure. And I believe in Rainbow Six Vegas, they did that as well.
Yeah.
And that was a great co-op mode where you could have your second buddy walk around with you. And unfortunately, a lot of the games like Call of Duty don't do that.
Now, if you want to relive the sort of great nostalgic moments, but don't have obviously your setup here, do you have a game on like Xbox Live or PlayStation Network that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I have 2 of them actually that are on there. Are as you mentioned, Turtles in Time, which is a great one. I remember playing that a lot as a kid, and it was the Turtles 4, and they had it in the arcade as well. The other game they brought out recently that I saw on the PlayStation Network was the Simpsons arcade game. And
right, I remember playing that at the arcade.
At the arcade, yeah, absolutely. And they had tried ports before and they were never very good, but this one is actually really faithful to the arcade version, and it has the full game on there, and it's available for download fairly cheap too.
I didn't even realize that was on there, so I guess I know what I'm gonna do when I get home. But we're gonna wrap it up here. John, thanks as always. Let's fire this bad boy up and play some Rescue Rangers.
Let's do it.
Awesome, thanks man.
Now, if you're a fan of the Game Code on Facebook, you'll know that once a week we like to throw a fun question out to fans and get some feedback in what we like to call Gamer Confessions. Now, our most recent pro has been asking fans what was the first video game they ever played. So we're reaching pretty far back here, but we actually got a ton of responses. And turns out some of our fans, their first memory ever is of playing a video game. So why is that not surprising? But first of all, Mike, what's the first game you remember playing?
Well, I had to think about it a little bit because I remember it involving tanks. And it turns out when I thought a bit about it more, went over to a neighbor, I think they were babysitting me at the time, they had an Intellivision, and we played a tank game. It was actually a game called Triple Action, and it had 2 other games. I don't remember any of those 2 other games, but I definitely remember the tank game, and I definitely remember afterwards bugging my parents nonstop to get an NES, and a few months later they did pick up because they are awesome parents. How about you, Steph?
I would have said Super Mario Brothers, but a little bit more mining of the mind made me remember that somewhere along the route, Newfoundland to Nova Scotia, the ferry way back in the day, so this was probably in the later 80s, there was a bar either in the motel or the terminal, and they actually had a Donkey Kong arcade table. So I think this was the first game that I ever played. But it's pretty amazing to think that like my first experience with characters Mario and Donkey Kong were actually in this game, and this was actually the first appearance of Mario in a game.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was called Mario. I think he was called like Jumpman or something.
Something kind of weird, yeah.
Not very creative, but I digress. Let's share some of the fan submissions for this one. We've got Bill B, who says Earthworm Jim. Now, I actually have to credit Earthworm Jim with actually getting me to even try a Sega product.
Definitely, yeah. I think I played Vector Man over at my friend's. I didn't have a Genesis myself or anything like that, but there are some hidden gems on the Genesis for sure.
For a lot of people, obviously, it was the Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt bundle on the NES. I can even remember when I was, unwrapping this on Christmas morning when I was like 7.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm pretty sure that I ran through those games for sure, like all the all the Mario games on the NES.
We've got Daryl M who says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES, and I owned this game, and it was one of my first as well. I probably got it around the same time that I was playing like California games or something. But this game was aggravating. I mean, I owned it for years. I never finished it, and actually I don't even think I ever got past New York City.
No, I could hardly get past any of the seaweed. You always go through your crappy turtles first, like Raphael, you're done. You're always getting the seaweed every single time.
Okay, some unexpected responses. We've got Adam L, who said Snoopy versus a Red Baron on Atari. And we also have Julie G, who says Burger Time on Commodore 64. And I've never even heard of this game. Have you?
I definitely remember Burger Time. Red Baron, no idea at all.
Finally, we've got Andrew B, who I cannot believe he confessed this. The first game he ever played was Earthbound on the Super Nintendo. Andrew, buddy, I feel for you. I mean, if Earthbound was the first video game that I ever played, I'd probably be living as a hermit in Siberia right now, shut off from the cruelness of humanity. So that's devastating. I'm glad you're still with us.
Not dramatic at all.
If you want to see what our next Gamer Confessions question is, make sure you follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/GameCodeTV or on Twitter at twitter.com/GameCodeTV. And we've got a new one every week, and usually it makes for some pretty interesting responses, so you'll not want to miss it. So go ahead and follow. Coming up, Ian and Mike take us to MOBA Noob School in the first installment of MOBAnomics 101.